Yeah, we're live.
Let's do
Yet
it.
again, Lester, another tough one to go through here. But what are you wearing? You're not those aren't Bears colors. What is this?
I just threw this on. I don't know. It just most of my at-home clothes are just not presentable. So like I didn't have any bear stuff handy. I just threw on a hoodie and
It's a little maroon and gray.
it's maroon. I don't know.
Red and gray. Well, you got maroon on underneath. I was just curious if this is like a sign that you're heading in a different direction.
Well,
right?
if I would have wore like my Tiger's hat, that would have been like,
Oh, you're
shit,
ready
he's
for
really off the rails now.
pitchers and catchers are reporting.
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready for baseball season.
Kind of thing. Okay. All right. Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna make a comment because you've been pretty consistent in wearing Bear stuff. And then after this one, you might have just been like, garbage.
No.
Done with it.
A lot of my stuff's just neutral stuff. It just happens to be navy because I usually like this is like the one thing of this weird color I own. So I don't know.
Okay. I mean, again, I don't want to dwell on this, but that hoodie, if you step back and it had a cardinal on it.
Oh no!
I wouldn't be shocked. Those kind of the colors that you're wearing right here.
Let's get the hat in there. I got
Cardinals. I know, but Cardinals used to be in Chicago. Maybe that's where you're going. The Bears got the Cardinals this week. I don't know. I just kind of curious if you're going to switch allegiances from one bad team to another.
I would never do that. We have talked a few weeks ago. If they run it back with this, and they just don't do things the right way, I will find an AFC team. So our Cardinals are off the table.
Right.
But I will find an AFC team to root for just so I have some other passion that I can be excited about. But the Cardinals, that's not where I'm going.
We could do a whole series of shows, just eliminate AFC teams and whittle it down to the teams that we're going to choose. Yeah, but it's great Chicago Bears offseason content. The AFC team we're going to cheer for this year because we know the Bears are sunk. Okay, well, on that note, do you want to get into the podcast? You got everything shared? Do you want to get into the podcast?
I got it all shared this time. I'm usually catching up. I usually forget, and then about 7-8 minutes, and I'm like, oh, I got to share everything to the Twitter and the Facebook.
Not today. We've got, what is this, 15 weeks, and we're now ready to go. Okay.
We're ready.
Okay. All right. Let's hit this thing. Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Berckes, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Bears were pretty much eliminated from the NFL playoffs this year after another heartbreaking loss, this time to the Cleveland Browns. How did you take the game?
We were so excited going into this game because I think all of us picked the Bears. At the site, we all went with the Bears. The Bears were getting a lot of love nationally too. It seemed like the Bears had turned a corner. The Browns had 75 guys injured. I mean, the whole roster's injured.
The whole roster's injured.
But the Bears, of course, they could not pull out the dub, and no winning streak. 2 in a row it ends. There is no 3, so there's no winning streak.
So there wasn't ever a winning streak, right?
Never happened.
Games, but they didn't get to the actual winning streak. That
exactly
requires you to win 3 games in a row before you can call it a winning streak.
Yes.
So it did not happen. And I was reminded of that Hail Mary, which we'll get to eventually. But when it went up in the air, I was like, oh, this is going to happen. I felt really positive about it. It looked like Mooney came down with it. I was getting some flashbacks from 2001 season, right? I was just things were there, and then it didn't happen. So let's start in the trenches because that's what we do in this show. We start with the big guys up front, and there's a very obvious one, and I'm going to take the obvious one this week. I will tell you that. Do you have anybody else?
No, I have no one. I mean, the D line all played fairly well.
Right.
I will say that, but the offensive line,
no,
did not. Bueno. So yeah, I'm with you. I'll let you take it off, and then I'll kind of fill in the gaps.
Okay, so of course I'm talking about Andrew Billings. No, I'm just joking. Andrew Billings deserves some love, though. He does. He played another good football game. We're talking about Montez Sweat. He's going to get the Trench tribute today. Double heaping Trench tribute for Montez Sweat for his 2.5 sacks and a forced fumble. Montez Sweat is the team leader for the Chicago Bears in sacks with 6 in 6 games. Montez Sweat is also the leader in sacks for the Washington Commanders with 6.5 sacks on the year, gives him 12.5 total. What? Like, I know
Yeah.
that it was covered on the radio broadcast, it was covered on the TV broadcast. They said he's leading. I'm not giving you guys anything new, but one of those like bits of information that I was just kind of blown away by, that this guy is still leading the Commanders, and he's leading the Bears now, and no one on the Bears is going to catch him. Now,
No.
obviously, he can't rack up any more sacks for the Commanders. Jonathan Allen's at 5.5 sacks, so he's 1 sack behind. He could catch him, but no one on this Bears team is going to catch him. Yannick Ngakoue is out for the year with a broken ankle. He finishes the year with 4 sacks. I think TJ Edwards is next on the list. TJ Edwards isn't going to catch Montez Sweat. So Montez Sweat is going to come in and play half the season for the Chicago Bears, and he's going to lead the team in sacks. And just the number of takeaways, which we'll get to here in a little bit, the sacks, the turnover, everything about this defense started to work when Montez Sweat was plugged into this lineup. And I keep joking, like, this is my MVP.
Yeah.
Because as good as DJ Moore has been all year for this team, Montez Sweat came in and unlocked the unit. Like, he created a defensive unit that has played really well since he came to Chicago.
Coach Flus is getting a lot of the credit from a lot of people, but it coincides with the trade for Montez Sweat. If the Bears don't have Sweat, yeah, they probably would have turned it around, because they've been in the scheme now for a year and a half. They did spend a lot of money in assets, in the draft and in free agency. So they're going to improve eventually. But Montez Sweat, he's the guy that unlocked this whole thing for Coach Flus. He's the reason why they're getting so many sacks, or getting turnovers, or getting, interceptions, forced fumbles. He's all over the field. I mean, Pro Football Focus had him down for 7 pressures against Cleveland, and look, to be fair, they're going against backups, which is one reason why a lot of us picked the Bears to win. We figured, man, Cleveland is down to 2 starting offensive linemen. They're, I think, on their 3rd left tackle, so it's like, come on, this defense is going to do some damage. And we figured Cleveland would be tough because they have a really good defense as well. But, come on, this is a game the Bears could have had. And yes, they blew it.
Yeah. I mean, I picked the under and the Bears to win. They were 3-point underdogs. In the game ended up, I guess, pushing exactly what the odds maker said. But yeah, pretty tough there. Let's move on to the tweet, because you kind of opened me up here, and I'm going with Bill Zimmerman. He's at Bill T Zimmerman, if you guys aren't following him. He says, if Bears didn't blow 3 leads that are mathematically nearly impossible to blow, they would be 8-6, 1 game behind Detroit in the division, with the tiebreaker in hand, meaning that they would have beat Detroit both games. And that comes down to coaching. And that is why Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren's decision is actually quite simple. And I just couldn't agree with Bill more in this situation. Last year, I think a lot of us were the tank wins sort of overtook a lot of our conversation. They were trying to be bad organizationally in terms of really just reset the cap. They didn't invest any, high price free agents last year. They tried some guys out to maybe see if they had a future in Chicago. Nothing really worked out, and they lose these close games, and you're like, hey, that's good. These guys are fighting, but they lost the game because, and that's good because we want to see the higher draft pick.
Yeah.
But when you look back again, they underperformed the roster, right? And so it was easy to turn a blind eye to what was happening last year again, because you sort of wanted those losses. But now you're looking at it through a different lens when you see multiple blown leads like they've had this year. And you say, okay, well, they underperformed last year's roster and they're underperforming this year's roster. Well, what is it? And this conservative defensive style of coaching, that bleeds down to the offense sitting conservatively in the second half when they have leads. It leads to, calling conservative defenses that allows quarterbacks to be able to dice you up. They've found plenty of ways in which to blow these leads, but it really does start at the top. And that, I agree. I think that this is the easiest decision that Poles and Kevin Warren have this season, is to just say, yeah, you're not the right guy.
You would think that would be the way to go, But we were talking a little bit on the pre-show is, man, until we see Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles really, really, really run the show, in the back of my mind, I just keep seeing consultants. I just keep seeing George McCaskey. And I know they said that Kevin Warren's running the ship. They say a lot of things. That doesn't mean it's true. Until I see it, I'm going to always have that in the back of my mind, like, please, George, stay out of the way. Don't step in and screw this thing up. Let them do what they got to do, And if they bring Flus back, which, I mean, if as long as it's Kevin Warren's choice, it'll be the wrong choice, but I think that's the way to go.
Whatever they paid Ernie Accorsi and Bill Polian, I will tell you, like, George, I do own my own S Corp consultancy. I am available for hire, and I don't know what they got, but I will tell you this, my fee is half.
Yes.
So whatever that was, I'll take half and I will set you in the right direction. So that's a bargain.
That would be a very easy gig. George, stay the F away from Kevin Warren.
I think I just go hang out with George and I talk about the history of the Chicago Bears and distract him.
There it is.
Distract him while Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles just go do their thing.
Yeah.
I think that's worth the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we got a plan. Let's get it in front of George.
Nice.
I just don't want to give consultants a bad name because we could, I could step in and do a service is all I'm saying. What about you? What's your tweet?
My tweet is in the same vein as yours. We're talking about those historic three losses. Zach Pearson was at Zach_Pearson. There's a lot of good stuff. Bear Report. Been a guest on our channel several times. But he tweeted out, here are 3 of the Bears' losses this season. Versus Denver, up 28-14 in the fourth quarter, lose 38-28 or 31-28. Versus Detroit, up 26-14 with 4 minutes left, lose 31-26. Versus Cleveland, we just saw it, up 17-7 in the fourth quarter, lose 2017. In those 3 games, the Bears were outscored a combined 47-6 in the fourth quarter. You are the defensive head coach, and your defense is faltering in big moments. And I want to talk real quick about the our SB Nation Reacts poll results. Last week, I don't know if you caught this, last week after the Bears had their second one in a row, 80% of Bears fans thought they're going to bring back Flus. 58% of Bears fans thought it would be a good idea to bring back Flus. I'm guessing those are going to change a little bit this week. I'm going to put those exact 2 same poll questions out this week when we do it. So if you come to Windy City Gridiron, make sure you guys vote on those polls. I'm curious to see if this, how this will affect it, seeing how this is the 3rd historic blown lead by Coach Flus.
I think it's interesting just how reactionary a fan base is, not individuals. I mean, individuals make up a fan base, and I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that. And I think all of the emotions are fair. I think we allow a space here to like fan how you want to fan. Yeah. I'm not judging, but when you do cover the team like this, what we say is out on record. Like you could come back at us and like when we write things like, hey, this you, right? Like that sort of thing's always out there. And so when we come to this show or when we write a piece, we want to make sure that we're backing it up with trends and facts and trying to be realistic, because we don't want to be running back and forth on the seesaw all season. And I think that the fan base can be pretty emotional in that way overall. And I get it, right? Yeah. Like you see a couple wins, that feels pretty good. That feels fun. And so you sort of continue down in that direction. I just, 2 wins, like, it wasn't enough for me yet. And you have to kind of take the entire year and the entire 2 years really to see like, well, what has this guy done? Is this someone that you really want to be in charge of your football team moving forward, regardless of what happens with, the big roster decisions coming up? And I just don't see it.
I will say this, kudos to the Bears fans. Last season, the Bears obviously 3 wins. It was a brutal season. The confidence poll for the direction of the franchise was pretty high most of the season. Usually these things really fluctuate. Wins, losses, they go. But last year, during all the losses, Bears fans saw the big picture. They said, okay, there's a nice draft pick coming here. It's a reset. They understood the rebuild. But I think this year the problem is we weren't expecting another rebuild. You know, this is the National Football League. Teams can turn things around pretty quickly. I know a lot of fans, oh, you have to be patient. We have seen teams turn things around in one off season all the time. It happens all the time in the NFL. So we expected them to be a little better than they were, and they're just not cutting it.
Yeah, well, the thing with the huge rebuild, where like the Vikings sort of said, we're just gonna kind of do it in place. We're gonna try to be the competitive rebuild, I believe is what they called it in Minnesota, right? And again, they went out and they found the general manager in the same cycle, right? But they said we're gonna do a competitive rebuild. We're gonna try to and Vikings fan had a lot of fun last year. Now they got blown out in the playoffs because they weren't really that good of a team, and I think a lot of us saw them falling back down to earth this year, which they did. They still might make the playoffs. I kind of doubt it, but you know, once Cousins went down, obviously that ship sort of sailed. But you can't really sell a 2-year rebuild in the NFL to a fan base. They can understand one bad year, but then they expect you to kind of be, you know, feisty. They expect you to win the games you're supposed to, or you know, maybe have an upset or two here and there, right? You can't really sell a 2-year rebuild. It's just not possible because you don't need it. Especially when you go complete tear out and do what the Bears did. So Bears fans are emotional, which most fan bases are, but Bears fans are not stupid, and you cannot sell them 2 straight years of a rebuild. So good on you, Bears fans, for expecting more out of this football team. Let's move on to caught up in a numbers game. This is where we talk about a stat that caught our eye. What do you got?
This one's going to hurt a little bit. My number is 10, and that is the Trenton Gill career high 10 punts in a game, which is the most the Bears have had since 2015, when Pat O'Donnell had 10 in a 26-0 loss to the Seahawks. 8 3-and-outs on the day for the Bears offense. It was sputtering all day. Yeah, it was kind of rainy, but it didn't affect Joe Flacco as much. I mean, he was fine in the bad weather. Trenton Gill, man, he was our guy. We were excited for him. We thought he was going to have a nice sophomore season. It just hasn't happened for him. I mean, he's dead last in his net average, which is not all the punter. A lot of it's the coverage as well. But, you know, we haven't seen some of the directional stuff we wanted to see. He doesn't have the chip shot where like we see some punters these days, they can kind of punt it. It'll hit and it'll kind of spin and die right there. We haven't seen him really master that yet. It's rough. I mean, he's a defensive football team, which the Bears are. You got to have good special teams, and they have Santos, but Trenton Gill took a step back this year.
Yeah, the numbers aren't great for the Guillotine, and obviously that hurts us here. We're number one fans of the punter, but I don't really have an answer. It does seem like he has been not attacking the 5. Like you say, maybe he doesn't have that ball that hits and sort of bounces sideways like some of those punters do. So it does seem like he attacks like the 8 to 10 yard line, which is normally fair caught. So he doesn't necessarily get those deep pins that I think a lot of people like. There's been a couple of big returns, which have hurt him in the net part of things. And then he doesn't have the booming leg, which some of these guys, particularly these Australian punter guys that come in, they have bigger legs. And so it really does. He's not really excelling at any one thing. And when you kind of add all that up, that really sort of does shine a negative spotlight on him. So not great. Not great, Bob. So I got a better one.
Nice. Good. We need some balance here.
All right. Number is 18. That is the number of interceptions that this defense has. They are now second in the National Football League in interceptions. What? This team couldn't pick the ball off since Montez Sweat has come. Apparently, he's also playing in the secondary. No, his pass rush, though, is impacting some of these balls that are put out there. The Niners are leading that's not a surprise. The Niners are leading the league with 19 interceptions. They got a great defense. They're playing with leads all the time. None of that should surprise you. Bears are only one behind at 18. They have had 12 interceptions in the last 4 games. Like that's crazy. That is a crazy hot streak. And if they continue that crazy hot streak, which I don't know, maybe Like, who knows? Why would they stop now?
Yeah.
If they're able to continue that, they could match 2018 when the Bears finished with 27 interceptions. So who knows? The Montez Sweat coming in, he's got the Bears out of last place in sacks. He's got them up to second place in interceptions. Like, this guy, I'm telling you, this guy should get some Defensive Player of the Year votes as well as he's played since the trade.
What a multiplier he has. He just made everyone better around him. It just showed you that, like I said last week, I was critical of the trade at the time, but that was a good deal. I mean, they had to make the deal when they did. They had to do it. They had to give up what they had to give up because he was on his way to Atlanta. That was a done deal. He would have went there. He would have signed, and the Bears never would have saw him in free agency. So you had to do it. I will say, when you said 18, my mind went to Robert Tonyan.
Well, that's not a good thing.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh God, that can't be it. So, okay.
We got some
take that out of there.
Tunyon stuff later. Tunyon, right? Yeah, you always got to remember it rhymes with Tunyon. Funyon. All right. We'll hit the Fields report next. Justin Fields, 19 of 40, 166 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, which both Hail Marys, and one of them wasn't actually picked off. I don't know if that'll get corrected in the official stat sheet or not. Took 3 sacks for an 18-yard total loss, and then carried the ball 7 times for 30 yards. So overall, again, Cleveland's got a good defense. This is not something that was a surprise. Their defensive line really gave Fields a lot of problems all day. A couple of big drops, a couple of very big drops that definitely could have changed the course of this football game. But I don't know. Overall, what did you think of Fields' game?
He was fine. I mean, kind of what I said last week. He was fine. I mean, he was under 50% passing. You talk about some of the drops. He had pressure in his face a lot. I think I saw a stat by Courtney Cronin tweeted out 20 pressures, which is like the 3rd time this year the Bears have faced 20 or more pressures, which is leading the league. Now, pressures is O-line, of course. It's also the backs, it's tight ends, it's Fields. So it's not good. A lot of pressure, but that's what Cleveland does. I mean, they give you a lot of different looks. They try and scheme their guys up. They move Myles Garrett all around the place. Garrett got no sacks, but I think he had 7 or 8 pressures himself. So it's a tough defense. And you kind of say, you look at the stats, like, man, 40 passing attempts, in that bad weather, but that's because they couldn't run the ball. I mean, Deontay Foreman had 6 carries for -6 yards. Herbert, I don't know. Is he not healthy? I mean, he's not the same guy since he came back from that injury. So maybe he's not all the way back. Roshan Johnson looks fine, but he doesn't have the explosiveness that you want to see out of your tailback. So they couldn't really run the ball. And when they tried to run Fields, they were on it. So he was fine.
Well, to give you an answer on Herbert, I dropped him from my fantasy team, and I haven't put a prop bet on Khalil Herbert, since he's been back from his injury. So no, I don't think he's back.
Yeah.
And I'm me, I'm number one Juice Herbert fan. Yeah. So I think that he's just not fully healthy because he's not showing that explosiveness. But I think, one of the things that I think we all need to maybe take a breath with the Fields discourse when we're online and when we're on Twitter or when we're on all these other things, because boy, does it seem emotional right now. Like, and it doesn't feel like it feels like there's a number of people that aren't allowing for a middle ground in the conversation. And I think for some, like people like us, I think that can be kind of frustrating because we're trying to look at this objectively. We're trying to look at the whole picture. And I know you, and I certainly know me, like I really like this young man. Like I really like him as what he brings in terms of leadership. I like the skill set that he has. I think that you can tap into that to be a productive starter in this league. I am not sure that there is a path remaining for him to remain in Chicago. And I think that a lot of it is because the Bears look like they're about to hit the lottery. I know Carolina won this week, but they're about to hit the lottery with a good quarterback prospect draft and a high pick. And I think that if, as Bears fans, you're just going to have to come to realize that that's what Ryan Poles is going to be working with. And Fields just hasn't had that great consistent output to take it off the table. And so circumstances that some are in his control and some are not in his control, I think are going to lead to Justin Fields playing football for somebody else next year.
People take it so personal. It's
Right.
like for us, like I just don't bother with giving Fields thoughts on Twitter or on social media, just because it's just not worth it, because people just they're so emotional. They're invested in this young man. It's like they want it to work out. I want it to work out. I just see, like you said, with the Bears having the first or second overall draft pick, two prospects that have been on everyone's top of the board for a couple of years. It just seems like it's the right time to move on. And like I said, I want it to work out, but the facts are, when you have those two picks there, and yeah, they had the first pick last year, but Bryce Young and CJ Stroud weren't thought of at the same level of these two guys this year. It just makes sense. I want to see Fields stay in Chicago. I want to see it work out, but I also understand the realistic options that Ryan Poles has. I just think he's going to move on from Fields.
It's tough. It's tough. I get it, but let's just stop throwing around angry insults that people
are so mad. It's like
everybody's mad. It's mad, right? Anyway, okay. Well, we're gonna take a quick break. On the other side of it, we're gonna do everybody's favorite segment, the Three Bears. So stick with us. All right, Lester, Three Bears, hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, plenty of opportunities to sling those around this week. And just right. So let's start with the hot. What do you got?
Montez Sweat was the obvious choice here too. He just had a phenomenal game, but I'm going to go a little different, a little spirit of the hot bowl. And I'm going to a play that Tyreek Stevenson, a diving interception near the goal line.
Yep.
Phenomenal. He had 5 tackles, 2 pass defense. But man, he has been flashing, he and then the nice thing, he got up and ran with the ball. I don't know if you watched that in the replay. Yep. It was Eddie Jackson was kind of there like, let's go. And I'm like, Eddie Jackson, go block somebody. What are you doing? But it was nice. Yeah, it was a nice play. He gave up a play to Amari Cooper earlier in the game, but corners get beat. It happens every now and again. But Stevenson is, for a rookie, man, this is now 2 rookies in a row. With Kyler Gordon last year, kind of came out strong late. Stevenson too. I like what I've seen out of Stevenson. He is getting some playing time issues with Terrell Smith, who also has been playing good football. So it's a nice problem to have, especially when they re-sign Jalen Johnson this offseason. They'll have 3 outstanding corners.
Yeah, I like that. Yes. I hope you weren't going on the road of like, well, maybe that just means that they're getting ready for life after Jalen. But
they better not be.
Absolutely. I had Tyreek pick as one of my hot bowls. Absolutely. And the other one that I had was the Terrell Edmonds pick 6.
Yes.
Because I thought that was a fantastic play. He's just this, when you see him in person, he's one of those guys that on a field of NFL players, you go, who's that guy?
Yeah.
Right. And so he's different. Like he's built different. And so when he got that ball, he just took off. It was like, oh yeah, no, that's happening. Right. It's just really impressive to see him make a play. He hasn't made a ton of plays this year and obviously got the big contract. And I know a lot of Bears fans have been pretty frustrated, but to be able to see him make a real strong athletic play that looked like it at one point was going to be the difference, right? Like that was going to hold up as the difference. Really, the interceptions in general. Eddie being tackled at the 2-yard line. Poor Eddie Jackson, right? Like first time he's got the ball in his hands, he's got a good nose for the end zone. I guarantee he thought he was in, right? Like that offensive lineman came out of stage left to just kind of take him out. But I mean the Bears were this close to having 2 pick 6s in this game, but definitely give the hot bowl of porridge to Edmonds there.
That was a nice play by Edmonds, and it was a nice pass breakup by TJ Edwards, who kind of came out of nowhere. And as the pass was coming into the Brown receiver, he just obliterated that guy, and the ball popped up, and there it is for Edmonds. And he took it 40 some odd yards, and he got the pick 6. And I saw another stat where it's like 3 turnovers plus a pick 6 plus 3 sacks. Teams were like 40-0, right? And now, of course, another historic L for.
They also like some of these things, the like they feel very baseball stat. Like if you watch baseball games long enough, it's like this guy is
Yeah,
hitting left-handed pitchers on
yeah,
Tuesday night games at a 450 clip. And it's like, that's not a
yeah,
stop it. Like stop filtering to get these random numbers, right? So, I don't know how or why you would go down the rabbit hole of saying, well, let's see, teams that had this many sacks and
yeah,
this many, but whatever. It's not like that's like the recipe to get to. But
yeah,
anyway, that's my again. I get me on random stat talk.
yeah.
I can be annoying. Flip it around, cold bowl porridge. Where do you want to go? I mean, pick a direction, Lester.
I had Robert Tunyon written down, but I don't want to pile on. I mean, he's, it's how real quick, how are the Bears not able to get this guy involved? I mean, when he was in Green Bay, he was phenomenal. 60 some odd catches, 10, 11, 12 touchdowns. He had a knack for getting open. I mean, they're playing him, he's your move tight end guy, and it's not like the Bears have a great, bunch of receivers behind DJ Moore. Why aren't they running more two tight end sets with Tunyon and trying to get him matched up with linebackers or safeties and trying to let him do stuff with what he can do? But anyway, I'm going to go for my cold bowl. The Bears' fourth quarter pass defense, allowing 212 yards to 38-year-old Joe Flacco, who is still slinging it, man. I mean, he knows the game of football. He is elite, I guess you want to call him, because that's what he was known as back in the day. 212 passing yards in the fourth quarter, most in the NFL this year. Ridiculous.
Old man strength.
Yeah.
It took a little while to get going, right? And then just figured it out, right?
Yep.
Just distributing the ball. Honestly, Flacco looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Like he eluded some pursuit at times, like he'd move in the pocket and deliver downfield. Like, I mean, this is a guy that, like you said, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to play football. It was actually pretty impressive. I watched the game last week too. I mean, again, this is a guy that threw 3 interceptions and he threw a couple picks last week too. So it's not like he was perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but like, he just for a guy that's like coming off the couch and doesn't know these guys. I mean, that ball to Goodwin was perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, like he had a couple really nice throws, but that's a good one. I had that as well. Particularly, I had the play call of Justin Jones dropping back
Oh,
in coverage that on the huge David Njoku catch. I mean, 300 plus pound defensive tackle hanging out in zone and the ball going over his head. I mean, I can only imagine what was going through his mind when he's dropping back and that ball is coming at him. He's like, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me!" And he turns and he gives the old college try on the pursuit, down the field at this giant man in Joku that's fast as all get out, and like he's not gonna catch him. And then after the game, he says something like, "Hey man, I didn't make the play call. I'm just doing what I'm told." That absolutely the play called. I'm not calling out Justin Jones. He has no chance there.
Not chance, no.
But that play call deserves a cold bowl. But that poor guy. Bears pass pro. We talked about that. That deserves just tons of pressure in Justin Fields' face. Deserves and that also includes tight ends. That includes running backs. Like everybody that was supposed to pass block decided that wasn't a priority for them yesterday. Trent Taylor deserves a bowl porridge. Muffed 2 punts, lost 1. That was what he was signed for. Was the sure-handedness, and I think if you're having trouble, on a day where the weather is impacting things, just let it bounce. Like, just get out of the way. Like
the Browns have a lefty punter. So maybe
so
the spin would kind of threw him off a little bit. I know the Bears usually bring in a guy during the week. I don't recall seeing that. They may have done it, but I don't recall seeing that they brought a lefty in this week, kind of give those guys a different look off the foot. I know it seems weird, like, well, who cares? But it
that's
matters.
An old Belichick thing.
Yeah, it matters to these guys. The ball comes off differently from a lefty punter. It spins differently. It's just something. So I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with it. The weather may have something to do with it. But like you said, get the hell out of the way. Just let it drop if you're having problems.
Especially on a wet field, you're not generally going to get the big roll. It'll usually kind of stick and won't roll as fast or won't roll as far. So the risk there is a little lower. But That definitely deserves that. And then I think we have to mention Darnell Mooney.
Mm,
I think Mooney had a rough game. Had a bad block on that 4th and 1, or a missed block on the 4th and 1. Had a drop earlier that would have been a pretty big play to set him up into field goal range in the first half. I think that into Hail Mary play where he's got the ball in his breadbasket and somehow loses it. That's just a weird thing.
yeah,
Like I think that people are kind of freaking like, oh, I can't believe he didn't catch it just because just of the physics of the ball
yeah.
just kind of landing on in his stomach. But that's not a skill thing. You don't practice falling backwards and a ball coming and it's just bad luck. The ball just obviously bounced in a way when his body hit the ground. I'm not going to hold that one against him, but that really does cap off a pretty rough day and honestly a bad year, really
Yes.
for a healthy Darnell Mooney. This obviously he was hoping for big things this year in a year that he needs to show out to earn that big second contract, and it just hasn't been there for him.
It seems like he's going to be somewhere else next year. I can't see no matter who the coaching staff is. I know he and Justin Fields have a good relationship, but again, Field may be gone. It's just one of those things where he had such a nice year a couple years ago. He got hurt. Maybe his big season was just because of volume. I mean, maybe this is just who he is. He's a solid 3 or 4 option. And teams can find those guys these days. So he'll obviously stay in the league somewhere next year. But he's got to do some work here on his rep to get things built up because he's had a rough year this year.
Yeah, the other guy we like, but I think we have to call it out and
Yep.
call it for what it is. I don't think the drop in the end zone is
No.
as big of a deal as what that's just a weird thing. The other stuff bothers me a little bit more. All right, Just Right. The Just Right Bowl. You have anybody identified for this one?
I'm going to go back to the defense. I'm going to go with a defensive end, DeMarcus Walker.
Yeah.
Nice game, 4 tackles, half a sack, 2 tackles for loss. He had 2 quarterback hits. He kind of lost some playing time when the Bears made a trade for Montez Sweat. He's fine. He can kick inside and play some 3 tech for you up and down that line. He's a good pro. He's a good football player. And now with Ngakoue injured and gone, Walker gets his spot back. And he performed. I mean, he's a good football player. And this is kind of what we expect out of DeMarcus Walker each week. So hopefully he can build on this. And I mean, he's signed, I believe, a 3-year deal. So he'll be here next year regardless. So hopefully he can build off this and show himself a good spot for whoever's coaching this team in 2024.
Yeah, I thought it was a 2-year deal. So
okay, maybe it was a 2-year deal.
Good to know, or maybe functionally too. I don't know exactly the details of that, but yeah, it was sort of one of those bigger signings on that first year of polls. I have some tongue-in-cheek stuff. First goes to the referees for continuing their string of not calling late hits on Justin Fields. The end of the first half.
That was terrible.
That first half Hail Mary. I mean, forearm to the chest well after that ball was away and no call. And that puts you into field goal range.
Yeah.
That is a legit, hey, it's no time on the clock. Well, you 15 yards, you get you get one play from there, and Bears probably, I would assume, bring out Cairo Santos for a makeable field goal, and that could be again the difference in the game, or it changes the complexity of the game. But again, that's absolutely what happens every single week. Is that we just a very blatant, obvious call. For some reason, Justin Fields doesn't get the benefit of the doubt there, and you can't even say he was a runner. Someone, he turned into a runner there. He's not going to get protection like a quarterback once he does that. So, that's why. No, he's throwing the football. This is after he threw the football. They were looking at it. It just blows my mind. The other Just Right Bowl, again, this is what we expect. This is what we expect. Goes to head coach Matt Eberflus.
Oh.
3rd time this year that his Chicago Bears have blown a lead. At this point, it's a trend. You talked about 3 straight wins makes a winning streak. 3 times is a trend. 1 time, it's a fluke. 2 times, I don't know. That's curious. 3 times, this is who he is. You told us who you are by these huge leads that you let evaporate.
A lot of it is also some fans are like, hey, Flus is doing fine as a defensive coordinator. You got to get rid of Getsy, though. Well, you know what? Getsy as your play caller, he takes his cue from the head coach. So you really think that if let's say they keep Flus, and let's say that happens, and they bring in a super aggressive offensive guy, Flus ain't gonna let him do what he wants to do. He's gonna want to be conservative because that's who Flus is, a head coach. He sets the tone for all of his coaches. So again, Getsy ain't the guy. Getsy may be better somewhere else if he's not under Flus. Who knows at this point?
I don't think anybody's going to let Luke Getsy coordinate an offense for a
No.
while. I think he'll go back to being a quarterback coach, probably somewhere. Get it up. These guys generally land somewhere in the league, right? But he's not going to coordinate anything anytime soon. Did not work out in Chicago. He needs to reset that part of his career. Okay, well that's the 3 bowls of porridge. I tried to be somewhat positive, and I got 17 cold bowls and a couple tongue-in-cheek just right. So I did not accomplish what I set out to do in terms of balance, but you're here to balance me out. So that's always good. Anything about this game before we turn it over to the questions in the YouTube live stream?
This game sucked rewatching it. It's always brutal, but like you said, this is the 3rd time now. I think we were more surprised when they held on and beat the Lions last week. That was more surprising because we're used to this team, this staff having issues. So many things went the Bears' way against Cleveland. The injuries we talked about, the penalties. The Browns got hit with way more penalties than the Bears this time. The turnovers, the sacks. So much should have went the right way. It just, like you said, this is who they are. It's time to flush the Flus.
Thank you. Finally, we get to use the hashtag that I have been trying to get you to use as a show title. So
that is the show, the podcast show title, and it's the video title.
Flush the Flus. Let's get that trending. And wherever you get your social media, we can hashtag flush the Flus, and let's get that trending. So, all right, that's what we got. We're gonna head on over to the comments in the YouTube section. If you ever want to join us live, we hang out on Mondays at 6:00 Central Time. Although next week, probably not, because that's Christmas Day.
That is Christmas Day.
So we'll probably move that to Tuesday. But generally, we're here on Mondays, 6:00, talking about the Bears game. There's a couple games left. We're going to run out the string. The Bears may not be playing for anything, but we are. We are going to continue to bring you the most Bear and balanced-ish coverage of this team that you can possibly ask for every week.
We're here.
How's that?
That's fair. I love it.
All right. Well, until next time, keep your head up, bear down.
Flush the Flus.
Flush the Flus.
Chris added a little turd emoji afterwards.
I mean, that's where we're going, right?
Yeah. Brutal. That game sucked.
Chris thinks Harbaugh's going to go to the Chargers. I think that's
He's not going to Chicago. That's not.
No, he's not going to Chicago. If he's going anywhere, that's where he's going.
Yeah. Especially now because the Raiders seem like they may have their guy. I like what the Raiders have done with
Pierce.
I think he's the players have rallied around him. He just seems like he's got that humble thing going for him. He brought in a bunch of veteran guys around him. He understands what he couldn't do. And I just think the players respect that. And I think he's a player, a former player. So, I thought that would be a good destination for Harbaugh if it wasn't with the Chargers. But yeah, I think they're locked in now on him. And Harbaugh is going to LA.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Number one Bears fan says, just saying. That's her catchphrase, by the way. I'm just saying. She does that all the time. I'm just saying these guys get paid millions to catch the damn ball. She's not happy. She's not happy. Why would you be?
Yeah.
Our old friend Robert Schmidt stopping by. Good to see you, Robert. Says Montez Sweat rules. Yeah, he's awesome.
I did not think he was this good. I mean, granted, I have not watched a ton of Washington tape.
I knew he was a good football player.
Yeah, I knew he was fine, but he's pretty damn good.
He's killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's. I mean, it's not like they were holding him back or anything. I just think he had so much competition with other really good defensive
Yeah.
linemen in Washington that you can kind of, especially when you have a guy like Young on the other side who was really highly drafted. But Sweat just had like a weird journey through college that I think kind of knocked him down. But he's still a first round pick. It's just
Yep.
later, and then like he's played well, but he doesn't have he's a really good football player. That's what
He
we
is.
keep saying. He's a
Yeah.
really good football player, which means like he can rush the passer and he plays the run well. Like he's well rounded, right? Whereas a lot of people are like, oh, that guy's a really good pass rusher, right? We've always said he's a really good football player, and I think that you're just seeing him get home a little bit more frequently with some of these pass rushers, and that's how you get attention in the league. And it's funny. A lot of people are like, man, it's too much money. They overpaid. I mean, if
No.
he records this level of sacks,
Yeah.
people are going to be like, the Bears got a pretty good deal on Montez Sweat. They locked him up before, like I mean, the narrative is going to shift so fast if he can keep up. I mean, this pace is not realistic, but a sack a game would be pretty incredible if he could get anywhere near that over the next few years.
He had his career year this year, which is, and he got paid, and he's like you said, he's more than just a pass rusher, and it's a passing league, obviously, so he can get after the quarterback, but he can do other things well for you. I mean, some of those stunts, the Bears, again, we're going back to what Flus did schematically. Some of those stunts are pretty good. I mean, it was just, he is able to kind of do a lot of stuff that you want to have your defensive end do.
Axel says game sucked. Agreed. Only positive to see you guys are still here. Thanks for doing this. You can't hold us down. We're gonna continue to do this, and not only because we're contractually obligated to do it. That's no, we like doing this. It's fun. It's good therapy for us too, and we like hanging out with you guys, particularly after the show, to do a little debrief here. Chris says, guys, do you agree that if Flus is back, they cannot draft a quarterback? Look, I don't know if I'm back. If Flus is back, we've talked about it, but like I don't know what I gotta like change my direction if that happens. But if they bring Matt Eberflus back, I can't see why you would give him a quarterback, but I don't really see the scenario that they bring Justin back with a top 2 pick. Like it's hard for me to see it. So if they do bring Flus back, they should just bring Justin back too. They should trade out. They should accumulate more picks, and they should go that direction, because it was a bad idea to bring in Flus with a second year Justin Fields. It continues to be a bad idea if you're going to keep Flus with a rookie quarterback, right? Like it was a bad idea. Let's not repeat that bad idea.
That's all the Bears do with us. They repeat their stupid ideas and their stupid decisions. They do it. So I would not be surprised at all if they bring back Flus, and if they draft a quarterback for him, and then it's not lined up, and then they have to end up firing Flus in a year. Now you have a rookie quarterback going into year 2 with a new coach coming in. It's like you got the chance to reset it again. I think that's what they're going to do. But again, until I see Kevin Warren make that call, who knows?
I mean, Cloudy, the amount of trolling that you do
Yes,
is just
yeah.
unreal. But yes, I will be mad. I mean, I don't lightly go out on and say they need to fire this guy. Like I don't do that. That's just not who I am. But it's just so clear to me that this is just not the dude. And so for them to bring him back would be, I would be very upset. I'd be upset. A younger me would be very upset. Now I'd just be like, okay. I just think I'm just kind of disgusted by it a lot of times.
It just seems like polls, like I said, because they have that first or second pick, everything is there to give polls an out. Hey, we're going to go in a different direction. Eberflus did a great job. He helped change the culture of our franchise, but we're in a unique opportunity now. We can get things lined up with our head coach and our quarterback, and that's the chance we have to take, and that's what they're going to do. The Iowa punter,
the Hawkeye punter, the only punter with a hype film. Yeah, gotta love that. A lot of punter talk. I suppose we deserve that. I suppose we deserve it for making
that's on brand for us. Yeah.
It's on brand. We talk about the punter enough, then people come at me. I got tagged by our guy Sam. Sam went off on Gill and then tagged me in it. I'm like, don't tag me in this stuff. You want to go off, but don't tag me in it. don't need I don't need that. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think we know either.
Yeah.
I think, you know, Lester and I talked about this before we hit live, and just think there's a lot of people that talk like they know what's going to happen, or talk like, well, polls certainly won't do this, or Kevin Warren isn't going to allow that. And it's like, you don't have enough data. You don't have enough history to know exactly what these guys, you know, you don't, we don't have enough information on either of those two individuals on how they make decisions like this. So you just don't know. You can say, if I was in that position, or I can't imagine those guys doing that, you know, if that were me, or whatever, but we don't know. We don't really know what's going to happen. There's a lot of dynamics that are there. What else you got?
Going through it here.
Robert agrees with my just right bull.
That was a good one. That's what we expect every week. You know, it's one of those things where, yeah, that makes sense. You know.
Robert wants to know, can you explain why Velus Jones picked up 2 first downs off design carries and then never touched the ball again? Too effective. You know, just you know, Velus has been the ultimate like tank player, right?
Yeah.
Like the amount of like negative plays per touch, like negative tank wins above replacement for Velus Jones. He's like, you know, he's like in the Hall of Fame. So it was good to see him do some good things, right? Like, I mean, as much crap as everybody gives him, but you know, certainly we've, you know, done the same a little bit, given him a hard time and made the jokes. It was nice to see him have a few positive plays, because he does have speed, he has talent. You know, it's just a matter of putting that all together, and he just hasn't had a lot of opportunities to do that.
It was nice how they used him in 2 different ways. The first one was he was lined up at tailback, and the second one was a jet sweep. So, you know, you would think, like Robert's saying here, he's the one guy that made a couple positive plays here. Like the running game was atrocious. I mean, but you know, part of it is because they just don't have the speed. Like we talk about, Herbert may not be all the way back because he usually has speed to affect the game, and it did not happen.
So
loose.
So we have yeah, Cloudy wants t-shirts. I like the poop emoji. I'm wondering, like, our partnership this year has been with 500 level. They have an NFLPA license, players association. So doesn't have anything to do with coaches. They're not, and they wouldn't be interested in this. This is like,
I don't think so.
This is negative. But is this like an obvious t-shirts situation? They just do lettering, right?
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, maybe somewhere around there where they could do a look, I would love to get a little back, right? Like, you know, give me a little off the top for these ideas, but it'd just be nice to see, you know, these fun t-shirts go out there and flush the floose. I mean, I think it's a perfect t-shirt. And it, you know, it may not be something that you get to wear for very long, and then it just becomes like this collector's item. It's like, oh, this was the time that we had this guy named Everfloose, and we started calling him Floose, and then he sucked. And this was the phrase to try to get rid of him. And we wore the shirts around. We wore him to Soldier Field so George McCaskey could see it. That'd be great.
That'll be great as long as the end of the story is, you know, you're wearing
it happened.
You know, yeah.
And then you didn't have to wear him to training camp the next year and have that guy kick us out of practice.
Yeah. Oh, that would definitely happen. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, they would not allow that. They would not allow you to. Come on, guys. Come down with me. Please walk down in front of all of these people in the bleachers and have a side conversation where we admit that we're wrong, but we're not going to admit that to the fans. All right. Anything else?
Here's a good one, just to kind of throw out there. How many quarterback coaches started together, had a run of success? One can argue having the coach first is more important. It probably is more important, but Floose ain't the coach. He's not the right guy. So the way the Bears are constructed now, line them up. You know, I just don't see Floose as the guy. I mean, maybe you do. I don't see him as the guy.
I mean, if you're saying that you think that Floose is providing stability, I mean, this is one of the more unstable seasons that I've ever seen in my life, with three collapses, 2 assistant coaches getting let go for whatever HR reasons they are, right? I mean, this is one of the more unstable things that I've seen. I think you saw some frustrated comments from defensive players last week. They have done a
Yeah,
very good job of sticking around, but again, that's also a testament to the players
yeah.
for being professionals and for playing through this as long as they have.
You said
But
not flus, so we're
okay, good, good. But yeah, I think that having the right coach
yeah,
is really important. It's just
yes,
that those tenures usually last long enough for them to pick a quarterback. But Tomlin came in, after Big Ben was there, right? Like, I mean, like, there's going to be examples of guys that came in and won Super Bowl or had a lot of success with the quarterback already established. So, yeah, I mean, I just think you have to get both of them. They have to get around, like, get along. I mean, those
yeah.
relationships are really important, and I, I just want to, I just
Plus,
want
it's just such a unique opportunity
it,
with the Bears having.
unprecedented, really.
Yeah, they're going to have their chance to pick the guy, possibly whichever one they want, and it's just everything points to another quarterback resets, and as Bears fans, we've never seen them get it right, so hopefully it changes at
Yeah, I
some
mean,
point.
I've never seen it personally. I've read about it in history books,
Yeah,
right? Like I've read about
Sid Luckman, yeah, they got it right
Sid
back in the
Luckman and
40s. Yeah,
the T formation was made in motion, and George Hallis and, like, Clark Shaughnessy and all these, like, fun things that happened in the 40s, and then after that, like, I don't think it ever happened again. It's rough. Yeah, Robert. Robert's saying it worked. They don't do that. They don't go back to the same concepts and say, "Hey, we're going to keep running this until you stop it." It drives me nuts. Like, it's the weirdest thing. Like, watch a Shanahan tree guy, and he gets something, and, like, they'll keep doing it.
yeah,
They'll keep doing it, and then, like, then you'll adjust, and then he's got the counter off of it. And we talked about that last week, right? Or maybe I was talking about with
yeah,
EJ. Like, they break you because they're gonna run something to make you do something you don't want to do. And once you flip it and don't want to do it, you're not as good at that. And then they take advantage of that. Like, it's so much more fun to watch guys that know what they're doing. Whereas this feels like such scattershot, where it's like, well, all right, let's try this. Oh, cool, that worked. Well, let's look on the next thing on my play sheet. Like, well, wait, go back to that thing that you were doing, right? Or do you have a counter off of that? Do you have does it connect it in any way? Like, are you setting something up for down the line? When's the last time that you saw a play, Lester? And play calling. When's the last time you saw Luke Getzey play and say, oh, he set that up, in the second quarter drive? I've never I've never seen
yeah,
it. I'm sure it's happened, but, like,
yeah.
it's never clicked to me like, oh, he set that up 2 quarters ago.
It's happened with other coaches, other offensive guys. We've seen it, like
Yeah,
we talk
sure,
about.
not Getsy though.
Yeah, I mean the worst part about it is that's what the Shanahan philosophy, and Getzey comes from. He's not directly with Shanahan, but he comes from a similar school process because of LaFleur, and we just haven't seen it. I was so high on the Getzey. I thought that was going to be a good hire for the Bears. I was completely wrong.
I we don't need to go here. This is an interesting point. I'll just point this out. He says accountable is not unstable. You can't criticize an HR decision to let people go. The alternatives cover it. He hired these guys.
Yeah,
That's my point. He hired these guys. He didn't, what you're vouching for these guys, whatever. They definitely, there's something that we still don't know about the first one, right? There's definitely unanswered aspect to this with the Alan Williams thing. We're gonna find out more stuff eventually. I would assume it'll come out probably in the off season, but, like, we'll see. We'll see how much they were forthright or how much they were covering up. I agree with you. If there's a problem, you should remove it.
yes,
That's absolutely true. But again, it starts with the guy that hired them, right?
yeah,
Like, this is the guy that vouched for these guys and brought these guys in. That this is his team, right? And so there's an instability when you lose part of your coaching staff in season. So that's what we're referring
yeah,
to. So, uh, but good point, fair point to talk about, because yeah, the alternative is not good either. But that's an hour. We will continue to, again, cover this team We got 3 more of these things. We will do our best to power through. Winnable games. Bears are going to be favored next week against the Cardinals, and I don't know. They could be favored against the Falcons at home because the Falcons are not
Probably.
a very good football team. And so, there's some winnable games. So for those of you that like to watch your favorite football team win, they got chances, right? So we'll definitely be here to walk you through those. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, if you have any questions, hit us up on Twitter or hit up the website throughout the week. And we'll see you next Tuesday.